So, born and raised in Windsor is this former NHL goaltender. He attended Colorado College after playing for our Windsor Spitfires back in the day. He's known for his time with the Edmonton Oilers and the Detroit Red Wings. Ed Mio, welcome to the show, man.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here, I guess, with all this new technology, which I have no clue about, but you young guys obviously know how to work it.
I see you're doing pretty good, man. I know the audio wasn't working on the computer, but you at least got in. So that's double success in my eyes. Good. You're out in Michigan.
I'll get to the 21st century soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. You're out in Michigan now, though, or?
Yep, I'm just outside Detroit area here in West Bloomfield. Not too far. I mean, it's probably 25 minutes to the bridge from my house. So close enough, like being in the suburbs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of better than living right downtown and still, close to everything.
Yeah, not that far, just a car ride away.
Yeah, exactly. And to bring it back home, I mean, you keep in touch with a lot of people, obviously, and come home. I think you're at the Glen Hall induction or banner raising at the Spit game, right?
Yes, I was. Well, I'm in the agent business. I've got two kids that are playing with the Spits. Is the young guy Chris O'Flaherty and Xavier Medina.
Okay.
So I'm over there quite a bit, but I'm also over there just visiting friends. It's always nice to get away.
Absolutely.
And it's close enough too.
Yeah, especially when we couldn't for so long.
Yes.
Yeah,
it seemed like forever. I mean, phone calls are good, but you like to see these guys in person, and it's all guys that I grew up with, and we all hang at Vito's there, and just make it an afternoon, and so and then I head off to the Spitfire game. So I killed two birds with one stone, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah. It's glad to be back doing this kind of stuff, man. And again, coming back home and seeing friends. So let's go back as far as you can remember, I guess. What like area did you grow up in and all that kind of stuff,
I was right there, right off Little Italy, Erie Street, street called Lillian Street between Erie and Giles, and hung around Dominic Billiards a lot. All the guys did back then. Erie Street, it's no longer around, but now it's amazing to see the change. 15 years ago from when I grew up, there was nothing, and now you go down there and there's all kinds of restaurants, and obviously the 9/11 hit, and that kind of changed the perception of Americans coming over, but still it's right around that area. I played my hockey at Lansbury Park, outdoor rink.
Yep.
Windsor Arena wasn't that far, so it was a good area to grow up in. Obviously an Italian area back then, but enjoyed it. A lot of good pastries at Italian bakery in Colombo Bakery before your time, Drake.
Yeah. Now we got La Stella. That's my go-to.
La Stella used to be at down in closer to me, and she moved out where International Bakery.
Mm-hmm.
And then she moved down the road there and started her own little market. So, yeah, that was all stuff that I grew up with.
That's cool stuff to hear, man. Yeah, I mean, it changes every day, it seems, but to kind of relate through the generations is cool because, I mean, again, kind of going back, but still, I do the same kind of shit. It's different than when you were a youngin', obviously.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man. So I could talk about Erie Street all day, but obviously, like I said, started playing hockey at Lansbury Park. Don't hear that too often, that's probably a pretty unique story. So, but I guess, probably playing a lot of sports growing up. I heard you were in the World Series, Little League All Series, World Series and stuff like that. So I'm sure athletic kid growing up.
Yeah, 1967, I was fortunate enough to be picked up by a little league team called the Barons, and there was they were allowed to pick up guys, so they picked up about three of us. We played for the Tigers, and went on to just outside Stony Creek, Ancaster, Ontario, to play for the provincial. We ended up winning that, and then flew over to Victoria and played in the Canadian Championship, won that, and we took off right to Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the Little League World Series. So as a kid, 13 years old, I was on the road for almost a month, and kind of enjoyed it way back then. So I guess that's where I learned that traveling isn't a bad thing. But we had a great experience. So growing up, I tried to play as much. I played Pee Wee football out of Waggle Park. Obviously, going to Assumption, I played hockey, football there, and baseball. So back then, it was an era where you didn't really just do one sport. You were encouraged to play as many as you can, as long as they didn't run into each other. And for me, football ended, then hockey started, hockey ended, and then baseball started. So it was pretty good. I did try my hand at basketball, but I sucked at it. So not a very good basketball player. Plus, I was too small. But like I said, it was encouraged for young athletes to play as many sports as you can.
Oh, that's cool.
I guess that's why I'm a terrible golfer now, because I never took up golf in the summer.
Oh man, but, that's a terrible thing to be a hockey player and be terrible at golf too. So.
I understand that, and a lot of people have told me that on the course.
Yeah, I don't gotta tell you that. But how did you take on the role of goaltender then?
Well, my parents obviously were off the boat, and very immigrant parents that worked hard. They didn't know anything about sports except for soccer back in Italy. But when somebody asked me that, hey, all the kids are playing at Lansbury Park, it's great, it's a Parks and Recreation League, I didn't have any equipment. I had some skates, old skates, but found out that the Parks and Recreation supplied the goaltending equipment. So I just took it up right from there, because the equipment was given, the pads, the arm pads, and the gloves and mask. All you have to do is bring your gloves, skates, and pants. So managed to scoop some of those up, and that's how I started. But even in street hockey, going out there, I used to always, pick up the position of the net. So yeah. I guess it stuck with me.
Yeah, I figured.
And in baseball, I was a catcher.
Oh yeah.
So I guess guys said, that I like things thrown at me, I guess, so I can dodge them.
Well, so, definitely no basketball player.
No basketball player.
So that's what I mean.
Nothing being thrown at you.
Yeah, I figured that, they kind of stuck you there. Someone's got to play net, so it ended up being you or something like that. But interesting story,
I also couldn't skate very well, so that's why they stuck me in there too. But it just stuck, and back then was Saturday night hockey night in Canada, and I always fell in love with the goalies, like Johnny Bauer and Glenna Hall were playing, Terry Sawchuk, and they seemed to make it pretty glamorous until it was too late to bail. It wasn't as glamorous as I thought. It was pretty tough. So, but then it was too late, and I just stuck with it and enjoyed it. I really did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it worked out, and somehow down the line you end up playing for the Spits, which at the time were a junior B team, I think, right? Or like they first came back to the league and stuff, right?
They were junior A team, but tier 2. Okay. So there was an absence of about 18 years, I think, since the Spits folded, and a couple businessmen from Windsor brought it back, got the franchise, hooked up a deal with Oshawa Generals at the time where we would be their affiliate. So they ended up sending us some players, but I know they wanted some local talent there. So they invited Tommy Lazar, Nick Natashak, Ron Moscow, myself. There was about 8 guys locally that they invited to try out, and I was the only one that kind of stuck. And then Nick kind of played in our affiliate, Junior B. I forget where that was either in Riverside or not, but it was a tier 2. I mean, it was a good league. At the time, the Northern League consisted of Sault Ste. Marie, Chelmsford, North Bay, North Bay, Sudbury. So there was 4 teams up there. And in our league down here was Guelph, Welland, St. Thomas, Sarnia, obviously Windsor, Chatham, and the Detroit Junior Wings. And there was, I pretty much covered it, I think. If there was one other team. So they all became part of the OHL in 4 years after I left, went to college. They all became part of the OHL. So Tier 2 stuck with, there was not any Tier 2 anymore in Windsor, and Detroit folded. Detroit ended up being CompuWare pretty much, the ambassadors that they came over here. So it's a pretty good history the way Windsor got to obviously winning those Memorial Cups back to back and 3-timers. But it was a good thing. I think I'd have to look it up, but I think we were 4 years as a Junior A Tier 2 team.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of the beginning of that new era of the Spitfires, kind of part of the beginning history as well. It must have been cool to just play for your hometown team, right?
Oh yeah, excellent. Assumption High School was a little upset at me because I didn't return for my 1 year.
You were playing there? Were you playing minor or anything?
Well, back in, again, I keep saying it, my era, you could play for as many teams as you can as long as they didn't conflict. So I was on a travel team, a midget team, and at Assumption I played for the varsity team, and then I played for a juvenile team. As long as they didn't cross over. Back then we didn't practice a lot. There was not a lot of ice, so your games were really your practice. So except for when I got to Assumption, they had their own little outdoor rink that was in the back where the dorms were. So you could play it for as many as you want, as long as it didn't conflict. So we got a lot of ice time that way. So obviously playing for the Spits, I was on the ice 7 days a week. So I could not play for the high school team, nor would they let me.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was big time. I was getting paid $40 a week, and
getting paid at all is something, right? So
yeah, well, $40 was for gas money if you had your car, if you had a car. So
yeah, for real.
But so Assumption, I missed my last year there, but it was okay. This gave me an opportunity, and because of it, I ended up getting a scholarship to Colorado College. So
yeah, absolutely.
It actually worked out good for me.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but before we do, you played in the barn. Were the games just as rowdy back then in your day? You remember those games?
Even worse.
Yeah.
there was screen in the back behind the net, but along the side boards there was no glass, no screen, so it was open. So if a fan was sitting there, he was taking you had the benches on one side, but on the other side it was wide open. And then I forget when they put the glass in there. Again, I've been hit with a lot of pucks, so my ears kind of flow together. But it was an experience. The barn is, it's a classic place. I'm glad they haven't completely disrupted or torn it down, which I think is coming, but I'm not sure. But I'm glad. I wish they would restore it a little bit more and give it another lick for minor hockey.
I think they have to. I think it's a historic building. They can't actually tear it down.
Did they make it an historic? Well,
it is
that's
historic.
Great,
so
that's nice.
But it's just sitting there doing nothing, right? So it's about time.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah,
it's too bad that they should get it going for something, whether it's just some form of team, a AAA team. I know everybody wants to play in the nice complexes now, but if they were to clean up the dressing rooms, new showers, and I think it's still a great place to play, especially for a men's league.
Oh yeah.
Let the men's, just like every Sunday was the adult league. Guys like I can't remember all the names, but I used to go Sunday afternoon just to watch these the older guys play.
Oh yeah.
And it was a Sunday league, and it was great. There was people all over the place, so they should reenact that one.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. Like have you been to the new Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens?
Oh yeah.
Like that. just like the university,
Oh, you mean
like now
the
that it's
old
been
Maple Leaf
restored.
Gardens?
Yeah.
No, I have not. I've always wanted to go, but I'm always too busy in Toronto to go to it. I keep saying I'll go to the Hall of Fame game, which is all the former pros, and I think they still play it there. Maybe not, but that'll be on my bucket list next time I get to Toronto.
Yeah.
I'd like to go by it and see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is cool. And when you do think of the barn, that would be a good example of something.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
with whatever. There's many of options, but we could be on that topic all day. They'll never get it right. So you talked about Colorado College though. How did that kind of come to be?
Well, actually, it was through two very important gentlemen in my life, because they gave me the opportunity, but they were both referees in the Western Collegiate Hockey Association, which was at that time in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, the best league in college hockey. So there was Denver, North Dakota, Minnesota, Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Minnesota Duluth, which a couple Windsor I went to Pat Boutet and Gordy McDonald. Yep. They were before me, just 1 year before me, 2 years. But anyways, two gentlemen by the name of Mito Martinello and Sam Cisco were referees, and very respected referees in that league. And they obviously, Mito's nephew, which was Rick Martinello, whose dad ran the Windsor Arena, so we got ice whenever we wanted, but put in our names, and they came to see us play. Unfortunately, Ricky went to Notre Dame and I went to Colorado College, but it was because of the two gentlemen that in my life probably gave me that opportunity to get there. Yeah. So,
and some absolute Windsor legends that you just mentioned right there too. So it's cool to hear. Cool to hear they had
Mito was a heck of a lacrosse player too.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. And Cisco and a bunch of names you mentioned there. I mean, obviously wasn't around during those days, but I hear all the stories, and this is why I like to do it, man. To keep them out there and keep them going.
For sure, they were two excellent. Not were. I mean, they still are. I haven't seen Mito in a while, but I owe them a lot. Them and Father Cullen from Assumption, who is deceased, but John Sullivan. There's a lot of people that I owe gratitude to because of they got me out of Windsor and to be seen. So there was a lot of people that were interacting in my life that helped me get out of the city.
Yeah, and you did well right away. I mean, you're back-to-back All-American, doing well out there in Colorado, gets you drafted to both the WHA and NHL, but don't end up playing right away. You ended up signing a contract and making your way up, or what went down for you?
Yeah, I went to Chicago's camp after the fall of my junior year, if I went back to school. So they sent me to Dallas's camp, which was being held at the University of Guelph. And they wanted me to stay and they wanted me to sign a contract, but it was it's almost like a three-way contract where I would play in Flint, Michigan, which was a farm team of ours. And they would supplement my contract. So it wasn't really a contract for Chicago or in that organization. It was part of them because I was drafted by them, but I would play in the International League and then I'd be in their system. It just wasn't a lot of money in '74 for me to leave. Plus my sophomore year, I had a decent year, but I was hurt most of the year. So I was, I talked it over with a couple the coaches of mine in Windsor, and they all thought that it would be, it'd be more beneficial for me to go back at least my junior year. And then my junior year, obviously, I had a really good year. It was All-American, and now there was no reason to leave. Now I'm 1 year from getting my education, so I decided I'm not going to sign at all. And again, was good because I ended up All-American my senior year also, and got me a little bit more money when I did sign with the WHA. They offered me more than Chicago, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take it. And at the time, it was with Calgary Cowboys. Even though Vancouver drafted me, they moved to Calgary. And it was a little bit more money, but I always envisioned ourselves as merging the leagues. And at least in my mind, I thought we would in '76. So if I did well in the WHA, then I'd be hopefully a shoe-in to play in the NHL. And that's what happened. So I was glad I stuck to my gun. It's just there was a lot of breaks along the way, so it's not like I had planned it all like this.
Of course,
it could have went the other way too. It could have went the other way, but by doing that, I got to meet a very good gentleman by the name of Wayne Gretzky in Indianapolis. Had I gone the other way, I might have never met him, and who knows what happened. So life is funny. You have to take the right turns, and the right turns ended up really good for me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly where I was going to go. I mean, you get picked by Edmonton, and I was going to say, man, like one of the best things that could have happened to you, definitely at the time, and looking back at it in your entire hockey career, just to be,
absolutely,
part of that group.
Oh, absolutely. It was when we knew we were going into the NHL, that was the dream come true right there.
Yeah.
Even though playing in the WHA was fun too. I mean, it was pro hockey too. I mean, a lot of guys came from the NHL, so it wasn't like we were any less of a league than the NHL. We were just a little new and a little insecure in the financial area, but a lot of good hockey players came out of the WHL, WHA, I should say, and a couple Hall of Famers. Kenny Linsman came from there. Rob Ramage. There's a lot of good names that came out of the WHA into the NHL.
Oh, no doubt, man. Like at the time, like I guess you kind of explained it, but I figured that they were always kind of like neck and neck kind of companies, but maybe the NHL had a little bit of a step because of the reputation. But I mean, talent wise, I figure it was like pretty well the same, right? Like Gretzky's playing.
Oh yeah, I mean,
why else?
The NHL was definitely the better league. There's no doubt about it. But they were also the more established league. Okay, they've been around for ages. But it was a good stepping stone, and I don't think anybody ever thought that the WHA would be sticking around. They all knew the AFL versus the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So I think all the owners in the WHA probably wish that there would have been more teams merging, but unfortunately it wasn't. There was only 4 teams, and by the end of the year, there was only 6 teams left in the WHA.
Yeah.
So, and 4 of the 6 of the stronger franchise and franchise owners were the ones that were amalgamated and brought into the NHL. So things worked out. It was a very good experience, and being in Edmonton, obviously, watching that team grow and into the club they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
Was nice to be a part of it, at least at the start.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like when you look back on those days, there must be some great memories. Just the talent alone. We can name every guy. It'll take so long, but again, just to be part of that group, probably some great memories.
Yeah, it's great memories is right. So.
At the time, I imagine there was a lot of buzz around that group too, especially since you guys had just came into the NHL. Gretzky's coming with you. Did you realize that at the time, or like when you look back on it, do you realize like that was a big deal?
Oh, we definitely looked at it as it was a big deal. But if you look at our club in 79-80 season, the first inaugural for the Oilers, we had a lot of guys that were either drafted in the NHL or came from the NHL. Glenn Sather managed to keep the majority of the team from the year before that went to the Avco Cup against Winnipeg. So we had a pretty good nucleus already. And so then it was just bringing in a few guys here and there just to foot the bill and get us a little bit more experience. But right out of the gate, when you got the young guys like Messier and Gretz and Curry played great. I mean, we made the playoffs the first year that we got in there. We were the last team to get in there, but it didn't matter. We were the only team in the expansion that got in there, and we gave Philadelphia a really good roll. And that was the year Philadelphia broke the record with 32 or 33 consecutive victories. Not victories, I'm sorry, but the tie, unbeaten. They had 33, 34 games unbeaten. And so they were in first place, and they played us, and we gave them a tough go. There was signs in our first two games were in Philadelphia. There were signs of, who are these guys? We showed them. First two games went into double overtime, and those signs didn't come back out. The next year we came into Philly, so it was good. But we always had that expectation that eventually we would succeed. In the 80-81 season, our great Christmas present from Pocklington was a sheepskin coat, a really nice one. I still got it, but you opened it up and there was a little tag on the bottom that said Stanley Cup champions, 1908, and then it was blank. And obviously 3 years later, they got to put the number in there. So an 83-84 season. So that's how positive the Oilers were back then, as far as management. And even the players, every year you could see it get stronger and stronger. Our second year in the playoffs, again, we snuck in there. We played Montreal, and we beat them, and then gave the Islanders a real tough go. So that was the second year. Third year, we're in the no, I'm sorry. I got traded, but the Oilers got knocked out by LA, but they were first overall. And the following year, they went to the Stanley Cup. So in 82-83, they went to the Stanley Cup. Obviously, they got beat by the Islanders, but everything was going in that direction. And in 83-84, they won their cup, the first one of many. So answer to your question, yeah, we always were pretty confident that this was going to be a good club, especially when you had Gretzky and Messier leading the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then Paul Coffey. I mean, Kevin Lowe, and then Paul Coffey. So now, and Curry was there. So now you got five guys. So you knew the confidence level was very, very high, very, very high.
It's cool to hear, man. It's cool that you remember all these times in detail. It's cool to tell the stories on the show and keep them around. So obviously, unfortunately, you're traded from that team and go to the Rangers for a few years, but then you're traded to Detroit. But that must have been cool to kind of come back close to home. I mean, the closest you possibly can to an NHL team, right?
You know what? Growing up in Windsor, and you knew about Detroit, although they were never my favorite team. Believe it or not, it was Chicago. But
and you got drafted by him too.
And I got drafted by him too. So, but as a kid in high school, me and the other goaltender, Bob Brennan, we idolized Chicago. Whenever they came for the New Year's game, we managed to get tickets at the old Olympia, and he wore 35, I wore 31 because of the goaltenders. Obviously, they had Espo with 35, but we loved that team. But and then, ironically, I do get drafted by him, but never once played for him. But it was good to come home, but then we also had a saying back there that you're at the end of your career when you get traded closer to home. So it's just a saying. It's a joke, more or less. But in my case, it became reality. I did not have 3 good years here. I got hurt a lot my first year. I had a major injury, and I just don't think I ever recovered from it. I wish it would have went a little bit better my last 3 years here in my hometown, but it was good enough that I still enjoyed playing for the Red Wings and part of their alumni. And so, yeah, it was good coming back, but it wasn't because in New York, we had a real good team, and we would always fight the Islanders in the division finals to 7 games. And at both years that we played them and that I played there, they went on to win the Stanley Cup. So who knows, if that one game would have went different, maybe I would have had the Stanley Cup, because we had a pretty good team. So it was like leaving a Stanley Cup building team, because all we needed to do was tweak it a little bit, to going to a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 17 years. So that was probably the devastating thing for me, to have to leave New York, was to come to a team that we were rebuilding again. And we did. Our first 2 years, we made the playoffs. Stevie Yzerman's first year was the year I got traded. We got Brad Park in there, Ron Duguay. We had a complete overhaul of players. And once we got it together, we played well the first 2 years, and we made the playoffs. So it wasn't a complete loss coming to Detroit, because this is where I settled and worked in the business. So it was good to come home. At least my parents got to come to the games a little bit more instead of just watching on TV. My brothers. So it was a good thing, although it was only for 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bittersweet. It's the whole thing. The career can't always be perfect, right? And like you talked about, the Stanley Cup basically getting stolen from you many times. So I mean, but it's cool that you kept yourself in the game and in the community and stuff like that after retiring. So, I mean, might have been a tough decision, but obviously injuries stuff might have led you to retire, and right away just stepped into management kind of roles, or how did it work for you?
Yeah, it went good. When I retired, I didn't exactly get back into hockey. I just took some time off, worked in the automotive industry, but then a friend of mine who I met, again, this is how the world is funny out there, is that I met him in Calgary. He owned a real good sports bar. His name was Mike Barnett. He owned the sports page. Got to know him a little bit in '76 when we got Wayne and I got sold to Edmonton from Indianapolis. Coming out of the airport downtown, I saw a sign in a building going up that said "Coming Soon," the sports page in 1980. And I wondered if it was the same guy. So sure enough, at the grand opening, I brought Gretz, and it was Mike Barnett. We reacquainted again. I introduced him to Wayne, and the following year he became Wayne's agent. And for 35 years. Well, Mike was also the president of IMG Hockey, which was agents. And he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, I want you to fly out to LA. I want to talk to you." And that's how I got back in the business. So we did that for 12 years together at IMG. And I had guys like Joe Thornton, Sergei Fedorov, Brett Hall that I represented, Boyd Devereaux, Rico Fata. I had some good, I made a pretty good impact with 12 years. I had over 13 first rounders. And then Wayne decided after he retired, to get into the hockey business and be part owner of the Arizona Coyotes, although we were called Phoenix Coyotes back there. Yeah. So he brought Mike and me on board. So we all thought that would be our retirement and end up running an NHL club for the rest of our lives, but that didn't work out. But it still gave me 17 good years back in the business. And then Wayne asked me to run his wine business in the States, become vice president of it. And so we did that for 5 years. So it was pretty good. Pretty good run.
Yeah, you've done a lot, man, and some good wine they got there too. So,
but I became a good wino.
Man, it's cool though. It's cool to tell these stories, and obviously you're still keeping in touch with people in Windsor and all these people in the game through alumni and through being a talent agent for many years. So I'm sure you guys come back over here sometime and have some fun. Have you ever brought Wayne to Windsor? Has he ever been around?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure he has.
After I retired, every time Wayne came into play, we went to my mom's house on Lillian Street to eat. He never ate whenever he came into Detroit to play, he never ate the night before at a restaurant. It was, we always came over to Windsor. So, yeah, Wayne's been to Windsor plenty of times. He's been to the old house on Lillian Street. So, we always had fun here. Yeah. He was part of the building that we were trying to build downtown, the new arena.
Yeah.
He was part of the group. So, it's too bad, or else we could have still been part of that group, but things changed. But, yeah, Windsor's been good. And then Wayne did my golf tournament a couple years with Dave Batten, Man's Contracting. So yeah, he's well acquainted with the Windsor people and the Windsor surroundings.
That's pretty cool, man. Again, you never know what's going on in the city when you're just sitting at home watching the TV or something, right? Wayne Gretzky's down the road having some mom spaghetti at your mom's house.
More than spaghetti. It was an 18-course meal.
Now, right off the boat from Italy, obviously you're eating good for your whole life, and Wayne got to get a slice of that, eh?
Yeah, we were there. My mom was the head chef at the Windsor Catering at the Cleary Auditorium. So she knew how to do it. She knew how to do it. So
that's fantastic, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me and tell your story. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Drake. Anytime. And like I said, it's been a great career, a great lifetime, a lot of memories, and I'm glad I was able to share them with Windsor, because I do love Windsor. It's my hometown.